My name is Joe Garrison. I'm grateful that you're taking some time to watch this today. I'm going to talk a little bit about how sociocracy has come to be so helpful with my organization. Um, Back in the early 2000s, there were several of us in my community here that really admired worker-owned businesses. I had been exposed to some people who worked at Burley Bicycle Design in Eugene, Oregon. Another one of our friends worked for Genesis Juice Cooperative there in Eugene. And we sat around the kitchen table sometimes and said, boy, wouldn't it be great? Uh, in 2004, the little bakery in our town that made the kind of bread we liked closed on short notice. And the five of us who had been sitting around the kitchen table said, let's make some bread. When we started, we said, we're a worker collective. We're all equal owners, and we make decisions by consensus. That was enough for us. We just started making bread. After a couple of years of that, with some success, some problems, we got a chance to go beyond just being a wholesale bakery to being a retail bakery that had a storefront and the chance to be not just a bakery, but a community gathering space. And we were so excited about that. And we took the opportunity and we opened up, and all of a sudden there's 25 of us or 30 of us. And we still have the same set of bylaws which say worker collective, consensus decision making. And we had a lot more decisions to make, a lot more collaboration needed to start happening in a hurry. And we tried to address that as before by having monthly all staff meetings. We'd sit in a big circle with, if anybody was free to raise any topic, and we just did our best. And people didn't really like sitting in meetings for more than about an hour. So we didn't actually make very many decisions in the management meetings. Things just got done by whoever stepped forward to get them done, and there was power in the organization. We did our best to be democratic, but we needed some help. In 2011, we encountered the book We the People by John Book and Sharon Valines. And we actually got to talk to John, one of the authors. He came to our town, little town. It's Astoria, Oregon. We're a little town on the coast of 10,000, so kind of a rural area. He came to our town, learned about what our specific challenges were, wonderfully helped us to latch on to some of the key concepts. And before you know it, we had circle structure, as Sociocracy describes, and we started to set up our linking of those circles. But maybe the biggest one that occurs to me, the biggest change was to say, to the understanding of argued and paramount objections, which is to say, if somebody says, I don't like this decision, I don't think we should do it, you say, thank you very much, but that's not a block. Please help me understand why you say that. Let's use our notions of being able to collaborate and to measure results of things. And we're going to make stronger decisions by understanding objections and not just saying, do you block this or do you agree to this? That black and white, that's not good enough. It was so helpful to us to learn from the book how to understand objections and to embrace objections as a way to make stronger decisions. Really good for us. One of the things that's been so great for us about using sociocracy is that when it's your turn to be a lead or a representative of a circle and to attend meetings and to work on making decisions, you're doing the work. You know, that's an addition to everybody's work as bakers and baristas and dishwashers and cooks. You know, we're all doing that work and trying to manage our business together. So you know, it's wonderful work, but it is more work, it's more time. So for those of us when we're not elected into a position of being a meeting goer, it feels wonderful to trust that the work is being done to make these decisions, but I'm not having to be there to do it. And when my turn comes, I'll do it gladly. But for now, thank goodness we have these circles and these elected leaders, and they're carrying the torch for strong decision making and a democratic, transparent workplace. It's wonderful. It's like a square dance or something where some people dance into the middle and are the dancers with focus for a while, and some people get to stand on the outside of the ring and not have to worry about dancing so much. It's been really a nice part of our business. Since that big jump, you know, where we went from 5 people to 25 or 30 people, we've kind of settled out at about 35 people. We now have 13 owners and 22 non-owners. Ownership is open to anybody after you work here for a year. We've kept it as simple as we can, which is to say, it's pretty much all on pen and paper. If you want to make sure something gets talked about, you grab a pen and write it on the meeting agenda for the circle that needs to talk about it in your mind. You're welcome to show up at any circle meeting you like. You know, I was just at a conference where some groups talked about how using the internet and programs like Slack, I'm not even sure what that is, but it's you know, a computerized way for people to interact and track their meeting agendas and results. So that's all wonderful. I'm sure, you know, they're accomplishing wonderful things. For us in our little cafe bakery setting, it's been very productive and reassuringly simple for us to keep things on pen and paper techniques. So we're finding Sociocracy to be wonderfully robust, even in our simple implementation of it. And I'm seeing that other groups are able to use it wonderfully in helping groups collaborate over the internet when people aren't in the same room or in the same office. Powerful, whether it's simple for organizing dishwashers or complicated for organizing software engineers. Another thing I like so much about Sociocracy is that people get it quickly. We hire dishwashers in general, and they get trained and move into other departments as they get more comfortable in our operation. And they generally aren't looking for a job so that they can study democratic processes for the workplace. So that not an academic sort of workplace that we have, but when we help them to understand, okay, you're in the maintenance circle, you dishwasher. The way we make decisions is we talk about them, and once everybody agrees, then we're good to go. If somebody has an objection, we say, please tell me, let's talk about it, let's figure it out. Transparency is important, so we never make a secret decision. Any decision we make is openly posted so that everybody in the business knows about it. All our wages are also transparent, no secrets there. So people come into the business and understand a little bit about what it means to be a co-op and how we're implementing Sociocracy, and they're off and running. They don't need to, you know, have a 2-week orientation to understand the difficulties of our system, because it's just not that difficult. They jump right in. So at this point, we're going to transition from my intro. Thanks for sitting through it. And we're going to enter the discussion portion of this workshop. Thank you so much. And I have a shining vision that I'm holding for everyone watching this, that you'll find in your pursuit of sociocracy and other tools what you need to have wonderful collaborative experiences as you work toward the goals you have. Thank you. There's way more decisions to be handled than could possibly get done in that format. And so power was emerging. Kind of what happened is the sociocratic circle chart kind of emerged. You know, the bread people got together, they made the bread decisions, the pastry people made the pastry decisions. And when we ran across sociocracy, we had the experience of saying, well, duh, of course, that, you know, that's how life works. We're going to do that. That's kind of what we're already doing. So we've been doing that since 2011, 2012. What's really working well for us right now is to keep it as simple as possible. And here's an example of what I mean by that. The shift schedule is the central document of our business. It shows who's supposed to make the bread Tuesday at what time, who's going to be at the grill, who's going to work the espresso machine. You know, everybody needs to know that. If somebody doesn't show up that we're counting on, you know, life gets harder for the other coworkers. So the schedule, most important document. We put it in the middle of the office door, so everybody's always there looking at that. Around the schedule, we have cheap little pieces of paper, maybe scratch paper that we got out of the recycling that you tear in half. You know, that's about the right size, half of a normal sheet of paper. We tape those up on the office door around the schedule, and we write across the top, bread. You know, that's one of our circles, the bread circle. Bread, next meeting, and we'll put the date and time. And then we leave lots of room. And what happens in the lots of room is anybody who has an issue that they think that the bread circle needs to work on can write it on there at the spur of the moment. So let's say I'm a barista and I've got a grievance with the bread bakers because I think they're leaving too much of the bread bagging work for me to do as a barista. I grab my Sharpie and I write on the bread. I'm not a member of the bread circle. I grab my Sharpie, I write on the bread's paper, bread bagging. And I put my initials on there so that they know who wrote it. And that's my way to, with simple processes and cheap office supplies, that's my way to engender a democratic workplace. I'm wondering what people think about that. Are we too cavalier? Are we letting something slide by doing that? Facilitator, is there a way for us to shift this into an interactive mode?
Yep, I just turned off the spotlight. If you have something to say, if you would indicate by, just give me the high sign and we'll take it that way. Any response to Joe? I see Ben. Go ahead, Ben.
Hi, yeah, I'm in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada, and I really like the lightness of what you're describing, and it fits for me as someone who's relatively new to sociocracy, coming from a lot of work in emergence of various forms with what gets called the chaotic principle, which is the right structure is the minimal necessary structure that both gets the work done and allows the maximum amount of freedom.
I like the sound of that for sure. I guess I was listening to the intro session, maybe y'all did too, and there was talk of policy meetings versus operational meetings. So, you know, that seems like a natural issue to raise is, well, how do you set policy? You can't set policy with scrap paper on the office door. And it's true. I guess we do find that policy can be arrived at through very formal processes and you can get pretty good policy out of informal processes too. Like once you've run through a scenario once or twice and resolved it, then the policy emerges pretty quickly. And people aren't in the middle of their workday saying, gosh, where's the policy manual? I'm not quite sure what to do. They're saying, we did this before. I remember how it went, worked good. I'm gonna do that again. You know, so like you're saying, we don't need a policy manual that somebody crafted painstakingly with numbered bullet lists and all that stuff. People just remember how it went and it works well.
Yes, Jess?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jess, normally from the Florida area, but in South America right now. So I really appreciated that they were having both Spanish and English. I think it's so amazing what we're doing here as a global community. I joined this room because I've attempted a couple times to start a worker cooperative, and I didn't know anything about sociocracy. I found sociocracy after failing several times. But the biggest sticking point was how to make decisions about who gets paid and how money is decided, and how have you all kind of come up with decisions on what does the barista get paid, what does the bread maker get paid, like how did the money part, how do you handle that part?
That is such an interesting question. I had another Zoom format discussion, and my brain has really been chewing on that issue lately. I'll tell you what we've done. Here's what my brain's been chewing on. We're a rise to parity co-op, by which I mean we tend to hire dishwashers. Dishwashers come in, and when somebody is a dishwasher who enjoys their work and shows some hustle and clearly is ready to do a good job, the other production circles in the bakery will poach the dishwashers. You know, so when somebody's a sharp dishwasher and the bread bakers need some shifts covered, they steal them, those darn bakers. And so the people that are doing more of the management and hiring side instead of making the bread are like, time to hire another dishwasher. Okay, here we go. So we bring people in as dishwashers, and when people show their like-mindedness and aptitude, they'll rise. And nothing low about dishwashing. Anyway, so that's how we fill our shop, and that structure makes it real easy for us to have this pay structure, which is you get hired at the base wage, everybody same base wage, no matter what you're doing. Once you're qualified means you've gone through the checklist, the written checklist of what you need to know to be a fully competent worker in your work circle. Once you're that, you get an extra $1 per hour. After a year of working at least half time, you're eligible to become an owner. Once you're an owner, you get another extra $1. So the lowest paid brand new worker, least trained, the most experienced owner, most trained, there's a $2 difference in there. And we share all our tips evenly. So whatever tips come in the door from cash jar, credit card, from catering gigs, every penny of tips is shared out equally, whether you're the dishwasher or the barista or the person who's working on the payroll report in the office. So that's our pay structure. And that's all transparent. Nobody has any doubt about what somebody else is getting paid. The thing that I've been chewing on, which I referred to, is on the call, somebody was a tech worker co-op, and they had some people who were masters of databases and some people who were marketers, and I don't even understand, right? People they spend a lot of time and money getting educated. And so unlike us, where we're rising to peerdom from, say, dishwashing job to baking job or something like that, you got somebody with a master's degree who really thinks they ought to get more money than the person with the bachelor's degree. And nobody really wants to say in front of the room, well, I get paid this much, and I think you ought to get paid this much less. Nobody wants to have that conversation. So if you can figure that out, you're breaking ice in a part of the sociocratic world that I haven't yet had to go through.
Okay, well, we were marketers and techno people. That's exactly kind of the mindset is, so much of a I have this much of a background and 25 years in tech, and here's the new kid on the block that just does social media. And yeah, it was very challenging. So I haven't figured it out. When you say you share the tips, is that shared just among owners or all employees?
Anybody who works an hour gets their proportional share of the tips. Owner,
Okay.
non-owner, doesn't matter. Yep.
Well, if anyone in the group has, insight on how to address exactly what Joe was saying, I would definitely love any insight, because yeah, that's kind of where we also got stuck. So appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I wish this was true. I don't know if it's true or not. I wish that transparency could answer your question. Like, how shocking would it be if you just said, hey, I'm Fred. I'm the master's degree database guy. Here's what I'm getting paid. Hey, new kid on the block marketing dude, you just don't get paid as much as me. Here's what you get paid. And write it on a piece of paper on the office door. Fred, master's degree, 10,000 more than Bill, whatever. Be transparent. And if transparency will get you there, is my humble take on our challenges. Is it, as soon as you stop being transparent, look out. You need a boss, because that's how you resolve lack of transparency. Is everybody defers to the same power, that the same inscrutable power, right? That's what that is.
So I see Diana has her hand raised. By the way, if you know how to use that utility to raise your hand, feel free, or to drop a message in the chat or signal with your finger, any of those methods. Go ahead, Diana.
Thank you. I wanted to thank you for the things you've said so far, and this part, so I'll watch them later. I love you.
Diana, your signal is breaking up.
I'll turn off the video.
Diana, we seem to have lost connection. We'll try to come back to you when your connection is reestablished.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm sorry if it seemed that I didn't get any message, the connection was lost. So I'll just talk closer to the computer. Anyway, thank you for that idea. I hope that you will try it. Maybe you could start it, or you could get somebody or friends of yours there to just up and volunteer to be completely transparent. I think you would be fulfilling how Sociocracy is designed if you did that and modeled it. But my question comes from when SOFA interviewed you all about 2 years ago. And one of my questions was, do you use feedback loops? Meaning specifically in your proposals, do you write some sentences, perhaps in form of questions, about how you'll later measure and evaluate the proposal after it's been implemented, so you can see how well it's working given what the proposal was designed to do? And you said, no, we don't. And I'm wondering if in the last 2 years you might have started doing that. And I'm also wondering that if you don't, if you could share what your reason is. To me, this is the absolute heart of why Sociocracy is such a good thing. And I'm wondering if you don't, if it's because you really didn't focus on that too much in your training originally, or whether you've tried it and people don't really like it, or whether you've tried it and people think, I don't really understand this. So that's my question, and thank you so much.
I've observed in a couple of sessions lately where we had a split opinion. Often when we go to do something, there's no tension in the room. Like we've been in business for 12 plus years. We've been using the same espresso machine this whole time. We got that particular machine because it was cheap and available, not because it was really the best machine for us. And for years, I've been saying in front of the baristas, should we think about replacing the machine? And what I've heard back was, Oh no, we love it. We love our old machine. I could never stop driving this car. You know, it's my favorite car. That changed a couple of months ago. They were sick and tired of that old. It's a little bit hard to use, and it takes a lot of maintenance. All of a sudden, the teeter-totter flipped. It's time for the new machine. In that decision, the lead due measure, you know, it's like once the teeter-totter flips, I feel like there's not a lot of need to have somebody saying, wait, let's figure out how to measure this decision. You know, people are saying, we're united, let's try this thing, let's go. We've had a few decisions recently that caught my eye in the form of not a clean flip of the teeter-totter. Say in a circle of 8, 6 on one side, 2 not on that side. What do? Sometimes you can't do nothing. For example, our flour provider had a change. So we either had to spend a lot more for the flour that we wanted or change flours, you know, for the bread. Big deal for us, really big deal. And we had a 6-2 split. And the concern of the two was, if we pay the more expensive price, we got to raise our price to the customer. We're going to lose too many customers if we raise the price. And so we actually had the proposal, go ahead and buy the same flour at the higher price, and we're going to measure sales as an indicator of are the two people who are expecting loss of sales, is that coming to pass? So we're in the middle of that experiment right now. We're carefully tracking our bread sales to see if the regrettable raise in price has affected sales. So we haven't written off measurement as a useful tool in our sociocratic process, but absolutely true to say that we let the mob spirit run when it seems like it's strong. You know, like in the case of the baristas in the espresso machine, you know, once they're ready to go, okay, here we go. You know, measurement is not something we're talking about during many of our decisions.
Okay, time check. We have 32 more minutes remaining on this call. John, go ahead, please.
Hi, Joe. This is John Buck.
Hi, John Buck. John's the guy that taught us how to do this back in 2011, 2012.
I'm just celebrating that it's all working so well for you. Like, yay. One thing to add to the discussion we were just having about the bonus, this is shameless commercialism maybe, but I just finished writing a book called Company-Wide Agility with Beyond Budgeting, Open Space, and Sociocracy. We're calling it Bossa Nova because that hits all those. And one of the things that we discovered is that this question about how do you do the transparent salary and bonuses and all that is captured in a methodology that was developed in Scandinavia called Beyond Budgeting. And in the book, we suggest some different probes that you can do to try to see what works well for you. But it does seem like you can actually vote on salaries, just like you vote on roles and all that kind of thing. You can have that kind of transparent thing, and we've got some variations on it there. And so it's worthwhile doing some background reading, particularly in the Beyond Budgeting literature. Yeah, it's I'm just celebrating about how you're describing the simplification you're doing and everything. It's like, wow, great. You know, thank you for carrying that on and developing it.
What a wonderful thing that you brought it across the pond, because it just has, it's one of those fires that got lit in our shop that just takes no effort to keep burning. It's just self-tending. Yep.
The queue is open.
Yeah. Thanks for managing the shop here, Andy. I appreciate you doing it.
Happy to. Joe, I have a question.
Thank you.
It's more a style question. You have an approach that to me is, and I'm just looking for a description, not attached to this, but kind of folksy style or organic or grassroots, what's happening in real time with real people without a whole lot of overlay of a mission statement or a compelling framework. Could you comment about style?
So I think there's 34 Scorchers right now. 13 of them are owners. What's that? 21 of them are not owners. You know, or they're either in the pipeline to become an owner or choosing long-term employees that are choosing not to be owners. And out of that group, right now, there's not many college degrees. When we started, it was different. There were people in our little town. For a while we had 2 PhDs working at the bakery. One of whom washed dishes, by the way. But times have changed. As our startup crew was more high-minded, and they were pursuing the work because of, you know, for more intellectual reasons, you know. Here we are 12, 13 years later, and our goal of having it be work, you know, right livelihood. We're kind of sneaking up on having kind of careerism as a possibility within our little shop. You know, our wage for owners, tips included, is up to $15 an hour most months. You know, depends on how the tips fall. And thanks to the U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops, we've got some health benefits and things starting to be available to us. So anyway, there's not many college degrees in the building right now, even among the ownership. So we definitely don't approach most challenges with a let me do an analysis and write a report kind of mindset. It's definitely the first question is, you know, kind of like the drumbeat in a business like ours is customer service, customer service, customer service. And that leads to the drumbeat of customer service as applied to my coworkers, you know. So absolutely. And that connects for me, Andy, to a thing that I was thinking of, which is, it occurs to me that transparency, if you're thinking about business governance, sociocracy, whatever, start with transparency. And the thing that it's taken me a dozen years now to really to latch onto is the twin star or whatever of transparency is inquisitiveness. I'm searching for the right word a little bit, but whatever the opposite of defensiveness is. Because transparency means that you're going to frequently have stuff commonly held that you're a little uncomfortable talking about. And that's good, you know, it's good. And if you take that uncomfortableness to ground in the form of defensiveness, it's harder to get through the day. Everybody suffers a little more. But if you can rally yourself around taking that uncomfortableness and transform it into inquisitiveness. So here's an example. Flour, again, my life has a lot of concerns about flour. One time the flour truck couldn't make it to us because the Cascades were snowed in, you know. So this wonderful flour that we use, unavailable, gonna be unavailable for 2 weeks. We had a choice, which was basically stop making bread once the flour ran out, or use the non-organic flour that was available in the warehouse here in town. I wasn't the elected bread lead at that time, but when we got the news, the bread lead was incommunicado. I couldn't get a hold of him by text or phone or other means. And so I had to make a decision about whether there was going to be bread tomorrow. And I said, I'm going to the store and buying, you know, a half ton of non-organic flour. I'll be right back. And let me tell you, I continue to hear about that decision, you know, and what I didn't learn until after that was when somebody comes to you and says, I have a concern about this decision you made, don't open your mouth defending yourself as your first act. Your first act is to say, thank you so much for letting me know you have a concern. Help me to understand your concern. I could have saved myself so much grief, you know. So anyway, I'll wind up this little segment by saying that transparency and inquisitiveness, as opposed to defensiveness, are twin stars that when they orbit together, life just gets sweeter and sweeter in the workplace.
Thank you. Jess?
I want to say I am so grateful for Sociocracy and the people that it's introducing me to, because Joe, what you just expressed is something that I can use in my personal relationships and my family, as well as my business. And I'm just, you know, those words that you just gave me are just beautiful. And so I'm so grateful for that. What I really originally raised my hand about was when you said that there were founders that originally created the business. Did you build into the bylaws anything with the founders, like they have any kind of ownership after they leave, or is there any incentives that they were offered? No, it was just like, you know, so that was my question is, was there any kind of startup extra thing that you did to get them involved, or after they potentially left? Or
I will add though that none of the owners took a paycheck until we had been baking bread for, you know, we started in 04, we opened our retail storefront in 06, and none of the owners got a paycheck for hours worked until 07. And so in 2012, after some of the work that John Buck helped us with, we were able, in this kind of wonderful, I think it's a little bit like the bonus discussion, actually, John, now that you mention it, we were able to have an open collaboration about, well, you know, we did some napkin pencil work and realized, well, gosh, I had this many thousand hours worked unpaid back then. Some compensation now that we could kind of afford it would be pretty cool. And so I'm actually the recipient of quarterly payments against that amount to, I think, $2 an hour or something. But still, it's a compensation to founders for work done unpaid back in the day.
Joe, I'd like to return to something I heard you say just in passing. There was I heard you say a 4-6 split, I think, or 2 to 4.
It was a 6-2 split about whether to raise the bread prices to customers. Yes.
Thank you. So 6-2, that indicates to me that you were in a mode of voting, or were the two regarded as objections?
Right. No voting. The V word.
Okay.
Don't use the V word. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was just me in a kind of facilitating role, sitting back and watching things unfold and realizing, okay, we got to split here. And sometimes when it's everybody else in one split, the dynamic has one way, but this one had, you know, as a everybody versus two split, that, you know, that it was more charged, you know, I wasn't sure if the framing of we're going to go ahead and do this and measure the results was going to be able to roll through a 2-person tension, you know, but it did. And so far, knock on wood, the poor customers are still rallying around us, and it's turning out that, you know, it feels like our community is saying that we'd prefer to pay more for the same style of bread that we had. Yeah, but it's difficult to, you know, it's a narrow path to not end up having some unintended power structure enter the discussion whenever you have that kind of tension develop. And, you know, so like, I'm one of the older people in the business now, and I do have a college degree, and I've been around the longest. And if I had put on the bossy white man eyebrows and said, okay, people, what we're going to do here is, it would have happened. I don't think anybody would have called me on it, you know. So when those situations happen, I got to, you know, everybody, we all have to, but I've learned from myself, you got to be careful. Okay. Don't do it. Don't do it. Transparency, inquisitiveness, here we go. We're going to, you know, like, it's a little bit like walking up on a friend who's crying. And the first thing you want to say is, oh, don't cry. Rather than saying, oh, you're crying. This is a little bit hard. It's okay. Help me to understand how can I help? You know, it's that, in those split decisions, it's a little bit like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. What can I do to make this split decision go away? Okay, put on the bossy eyebrows. I'll make this go away. Instead, you say, okay, we got a split room here. Okay, we can do this. We can do this. Okay, transparency, inquisitiveness. We're going to get through this. You know?
So we've got about 15 minutes left. I just want to raise our awareness of who in the room is speaking, and to invite people who we haven't heard from to speak up. We also have people from all over the world. If English is not your first language, we can take our time. We can possibly offer some translation if that would be helpful, if there are other bilingual speakers in the room. So please indicate by raising your hand, doing the wave, or putting something in the chat. The queue is open.
I'll fill some dead space here by saying that our bylaws, though they are kind of rough, and the more we run them, the more I realize that there's some not clearly thought out components in there. They're available. So Andy, maybe you can help me clue into the technical aspects of this. But if anybody says, hey, I'd love to see those bylaws, I'm happy to send them out if it would be helpful to any of these organizations.
If you have a link now, we could drop them in the chat, or we could follow up. Ted will have a follow-up email communication with everyone in SOFA, if you'd like to have it there.
I think our website is bluescorcher.coop, and I think they're on there. I'll make sure that's the case when we get off call.
Okay. The queue is open. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
A question about what are the costs and responsibilities of becoming an owner, and what are people's who are longer term in the organization's reasons for not wanting to become an owner?
The way we're set up is after you've been in the business for a year and worked at least 2,000 hours, you know, so that's 20 hours a week for 50 weeks, you're eligible to petition for ownership, and you know there's a pipeline there. But anyway, if you want to, and if you you know have a general generally positive set of relationships with your coworkers, you know, you can generally just become an owner in our shop after a year. It costs you $1,500. You only have to pay $200 of that cash, and the rest comes out as payroll deductions over the next couple of years, you know, and you get the dollar raise. So your paycheck still goes up, you know, after you become an owner, even though you have the buy-in contributions. As far as why some people don't, the two notable examples in our shop right now, one one is my mentor. She managed the co-op grocery store here in town for 18 years, 20 years, something like that, and was ready to bake. You know, she'd been a grocery store manager for so long, and she was just eager to be a pastry baker. And so she left off managing the co-op and came to us. And what Beth says is, I love the work. I've had my time as a manager, and I just don't need that in my life. You know, it's not about the money for her. So she chooses to minimize her the feeling of responsibility on her shoulders by remaining a non-owner in our business. We have another woman who works 1 day a week, and for a while worked enough to qualify as an owner. And she had the same thing, which was, I really enjoy making bread. I enjoy my garden. I teach dance classes to kindergartners. You couldn't pay me enough to wear the mantle of owner of a business if I have to worry about making sure that we make payroll and all that, you know. So that's the way it's come down for us is, do you want to be on cue to get the call at 2 a.m. when the water's leaking, you know, or not, you know?
Okay, we have David with his hand raised. Go ahead, David.
Hi, I hope this is working. I'm kind of new to the technology. I'm doing this on my phone. Can you hear me?
I hear you clear.
Yes.
Yep.
Hi, Joe. My name's David Smathers Moore. I'm down in California and a founder of Teamworks Cleaning Cooperative, and I now do consulting and training with other co-ops. And I'm new to Sociocracy. I'm totally inspired by everything that you just shared. Thank you for taking the time to do this kind of event. And I'm about to start a training next week on Sociocracy, so my questions are probably really basic. But you referred to the bylaws a moment ago, and I assume that those have in them certain items that are voted on, if they have any kind of conventional bylaws kind of character. And so I'm curious, sort of, are there certain kinds of issues that your co-op would use a traditional voting methodology for major decisions that have sort of significant legal standing, like, I don't know, you know, a major strategic change or selling the business or something like that, whereas most other decisions are not taken to vote but use these other methodologies?
Our bylaws are not that way. And I've seen some that are. And in fact, when John Buck was helping us back in 2012, we discussed kind of the range of options. And the way our bylaws are is that there's a section that says, here's how this corporation shall make decisions in accordance with the principles of sociocracy. And so, yeah, no voting, no voting. So let's say that let's say we're having a board. Let's say we're having a board meeting about needing to sell the business or something like that, you know, something big. It's that sociocratic thing of, is if there's an objection, the decision can't steamroll an objection. So like in the case of raising the price of the bread, you can either resolve an objection by saying, we're going to move ahead and measure, or you can say, help us to understand this objection. We're not going to move until you've helped us to come to a decision that all of us agree to. Yeah.
Wow,
And
thank you.
So far, there's been no tears either. Not once that I can think of since, you know, 2012 or ever in the business have we gotten to the point where there's been the pitchforks and people saying, vote, 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 you know, like we've just never got there.
Okay, we're down to the 10-minute mark. I'd like to share screen briefly and show you where we are. We've had the slot A inspiration talk. In slot B with Blue Scorcher. At 45, we'll be moving to slot C with these options. You'll just click on one of those arrows. This is the room that you're in currently. You can stay in this room if you want to go to the next session. We have about 10 minutes and the queue is open. I see a question What is the role of your board and external members in your governance? Does the board decide using sociocracy?
The board is also sociocratic, and the board has really two functions. Function one is to understand the bylaws that are written by the ownership and to give us feedback about how we're doing. Are we living up to those bylaws or not? And how might we do a better job of living up to those bylaws? Secondly, they have a financial review function. And I really think of that as they are the light of day to keep us from doing anything financially sneaky, you know? So yeah, so the board doesn't write the bylaws. They don't set policy for the shop. They're kind of like they're the commons that's the light of day that, you know, gives us feedback on how we're doing and makes sure that we stay financially solvent.
So Joe, a follow-up question. Would you characterize your project as starting with sociocracy or adopting it and resetting using that format?
When we started baking, there was just 5 of us, and we said, we're a worker collective. And what the difference between a collective and a co-op was, I couldn't have told you then, you know, probably can't really tell you now. We had that notion that we were just going to manage ourselves with consent, whatever that meant. You know, none of us really knew that either. And like I said, we ended up having this idea of the round table with everybody present making decisions pretty clearly, quickly turned into circles making decisions independently. And when we came across sociocracy, it was just like, yes, thank God, perfect, you know. So if we'd have known about sociocracy in 2004, excuse me, I think we would have embraced it then. We just never even came across it until later, you know. Reconnect me to the question, Andy. Did I get there?
Absolutely. You started with what you knew, you encountered sociocracy and implemented it in a gradual process. That's what I heard. Yeah. Okay, the queue is open.
I've said this in another format, but you know how if you buy a board game at the store and you rip the cellophane off the box and you pull it out and oh my gosh, there's pieces that look like this, and there's 4 different colors, and there's 2 different kinds of cards, and there's a timer and a thing you spin, and oh man, I'm going to have to read the instructions for half an hour before I can even start the game. You know, sociocracy, we peeled the cellophane off the box, flipped the lid open, looked at it for 5 minutes, and we're like, okay, got it, let's go. You know, we didn't need to agonize over the manual to get started. I feel like I have a hope that many groups can experience sociocracy that way, where it's less about like Robert's Rules of Order, where you got to figure out, okay, did the chairman recognize me? And, you know, like, I got to study the manual for a while before we can have this meeting. Sociocracy shouldn't be like that. It should be more like, okay, circles, transparency, common aims. Okay, got it.
So friends, we're coming down to the last 5 minutes. Leslie, go ahead, please.
I'm just wondering what kind of training your newer employees get. Do you do updated trainings, or how does that work?
Good. Yeah, when somebody gets hired, we hold the carrot on the stick of the extra $1. You know, you get paid when you're qualified, and to get qualified, there's the general qualification and the departmental qualification. So let's say that I get hired as a dishwasher. I got to complete the general qual and the dishwasher qual. The dishwasher qual feels easier to most people because it's like, where do you put the detergent? You know, where do the bakers like to have the whisks put? You know, simple questions like that. The general qual has things like what's a quick history of how the business got started? what's a general, quick description of the role of cooperatives in the world, particularly in America? What's up with sociocracy? How does it work? And we have some trick questions on there, like who's your boss? Like often people come in the door and understandably their number one question is, okay, who's my boss? Who's that one person that I need to keep happy? And when we say, well, nobody, some people are really uncomfortable, yeah, so that takes some help. So yes, we do that in the form of saying, well, you want the dollar, don't you? Okay, here's how you get the dollar. Here's this list. Everybody has their little box in the office, and in the box, as soon as you're hired, appears this thing that says general qualification on it. And part of the laundry list of things on the general qual is sociocracy and why you don't have a boss.
I'm also talking about like training for roles within sociocracy, like your facilitator or your secretary or something of that sort.
Good. Yeah. For us, the way that's come to ground is there's the general qual as discussed. There's a department lead. So we have our bread bakers, pastry. You have our departments of the shop. We have a lead description that is another laundry list that says, okay, eventually you're going to have been in your department long enough that people are going to try and get you elected to take your turn as the lead, and there's this list that says, okay, as the lead, here's what, you need to make sure the equipment's good, your ordering is good, this. And so facilitation really happens in there. We have another one for general manager, which is kind of like the department lead for the department leads, so to speak, but it feels to us, at least for now, that we're getting it done that way, and we don't actually have here's how you learn how to be a facilitator separate instrument in our business. It's more about you show up at the meetings, and the way we do meetings is less about the facilitator runs the meeting, but more like the facilitator just makes sure that the meeting is done with transparency and good note taking and the appropriate use of rounds, so we do our best to de-emphasize the facilitator as the North Star of the meeting.
Okay, looks like we're down to the last word. Anyone have a burning last question or comment? Joe, would you like to make some closing remarks?
Just to express some gratitude. Thank you, Andy. I couldn't have done this without somebody who knew what they were doing. And sometimes you don't really want to roll out of bed and do it all again. But these sort of sessions, when I realize that there's other people all over the place working harder than me on amazing projects, it gets me out of bed and helps me to feel excited again. So thank you to all you folks that are doing it out there.